Oh, I agree.
Good afternoon, Louisiana. Welcome to Bayou Bets for Monday, July the 25th. I'm Zach Ewing, along with Jim Derry and Spencer, the Guru Urquhart. We have reached the post-Devin Jackson era of bet.NOLA.com. But you know what? We're survivors. We're still here.
Yeah,
For
we
now.
don't miss Dev, but yeah, we're trucking along.
For those who missed it, Devin Jackson moved on to greener, we hope, pastures. And we are left heartbroken, but soldiering on with our football previews. And today we're going to finish up the NFC East, move on to the AFC West for this week as we roll toward NFL opening day. And really the preseason is just a week from Thursday is the Hall of Fame game, the Raiders and Jaguars first preseason game. So it is right around the corner. Every team in the NFL will have opened camp by tomorrow. There's a bunch of them that open tomorrow, including the Saints with their veterans. And so it's just that time of year where it turns from, man, football season is so far away to where you can actually start to feel it a little bit.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I mean, this is the fun time of year for guys like us. So we're getting into not just the previews, but just trying to look ahead and find some futures we like. And there are values to be had still.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. And one of the values you can find is at Caesar Sportsbook. I'd like to remind you that we are brought to you by Caesar Sportsbook, and you can get a free $1,500 or risk-free $1,500 bet with your first deposit. For new users, go to NOLA.com/Caesars to cash in on that opportunity. And basically the way it works is you bet on anything you like up to $1,500. If you lose, you get that money back in your account in the form of a bonus, and you can bet it again. By the way, I went to the dentist not that long ago, and I was afraid I was going to be too numb. And now I'm finding out that I'm okay as long as it's not the B sound. The bet. I really had to work on that B sound. So
good thing we're not doing Baltimore or the Buffalo Bills today.
Yeah. So if I sound a little lethargic, then that's why. Mary Bell says she can't wait, but she's still missing Drew.
Oh. Is she miss Drew, or does she miss what Drew was?
I mean, I think the thing with Drew was that you knew week in and week out whether the Saints were going to win or lose, or whether they were good or bad. Like, they were going to be fun. They were going to entertain you. And
they still will.
Last year, that I said I couldn't smile.
As long as Jameis stays healthy. That second half was not there very entertaining.
I got to see Archie a few weeks ago. He's doing fine.
Can he play quarterback?
I don't think he could play quarterback anymore. He has a cane to get around. Probably not a good idea on an NFL field. But yeah, I think last year a little bit of that was missing because there were some games where you were like, I think the Saints could win, but they're really going to have to slog their way through this, like they did the second game against Tampa Bay, and then after that it got worse when all of their quarterbacks were hurt and they were starting Ian Book against Miami, and it was just sort of like, this is not fun anymore. So I do get that, CC, but I think this year will be better as long as Jameis stays healthy.
Yeah, I think as long as Jameis isn't needing Archie's cane, we're good.
There you go.
Let's move on in a few weeks.
And Scott raises a good point here too. No receivers last year. I mean, the hope is if Michael Thomas is back, I would say at least in time to play one preseason game or part of it, just to get out there and run around a little bit. And then also Chris Olave added through the draft and Jarvis Landry added through free agency. So the receiving core should be much stronger.
Marquez Callaway still?
Yeah, I think
Marquez Callaway goes from being number 1 to number 4, right?
Yeah, that's what I was saying. That's the big key, I feel like, is having the guys like Callaway, Hardy, and Traquan just being the guys that come in here and there rather than being the guys that you're having to heavily target. And as we saw last year, they couldn't handle that. But I think as the compliments, they'll be just fine as long as the big three are out there and doing their thing.
Zach, I think somebody's going to get cut this year that's going to be a shocker. And I'm not saying him per se, but somebody like a Traquan Smith.
Gonna have to, right? I mean,
it's especially if the Dejon Dixon or some of the other UDFAs show out.
Yeah, You have to.
Lil Jordan Humphrey's been on the roster the last 3 years. I don't
nice.
think there's room for a guy like that this year. Not if everyone's healthy.
Nope. There's going to be a surprise cut and or two. And on offense, it just goes to show you how deep they really are because, you know, we may be surprised at the name, but I don't think we're going to be surprised if a big name gets cut. I mean, how much time do you give a guy like Traquan Smith?
Yeah, and he doesn't really offer anything on special teams, or at least Hardy and Callaway have the return ability. So I think that keeps their roster spot safe. But yeah, Traquan, that's he's very much on the bubble, I feel like.
I agree. I think he's fighting.
And then what you'll see is some of those guys pop up on rosters around the league. And that, of course, that brings up that awkward moment where they make a big play against the Saints. Oh, what the hell are the Saints doing? But you look, I mean, these guys are good players. Somebody's going to get cut. And the other teams around the league aren't as deep, and they're gonna fit on those rosters. And this is what we call a professional segue, because now we're going to talk about one of those teams that's not as good and not as deep, the Washington Commanders. The last team from the NFC East, we talked about the Cowboys, Eagles, and Giants last week. Now we're on to the Washington Commanders. I will say this, we say they're not as good and not as deep. This is where I just think you can highlight how much value there is on the Saints, because the Commanders are only plus 160 to make the playoffs. Like, I feel like that should be double that. Am I missing something, Jim?
I don't think you're missing anything. I don't understand Carson Wentz, here we go with the name quarterback again. So people are thinking that this team's going to be better. I don't think they're any better. I don't think they have a lot of depth. I think they still count on Terry McLaurin too much. He's going to get double teamed. I know there are some other additions there. I mean, Logan Thomas is supposedly healthy at tight end. We'll see. But I just don't think that, Antonio Gibson gets hurt. I don't understand why this team has the odds that they have. I think there's value on this under win total. They are in an easy division. They do have an easy schedule, so maybe that helps them a little bit. But I am definitely down on the Commanders, and I think there are values to be had with unders here. And even to make not make the playoffs at minus 190, I don't think you're going to see a wild card out of this division, which means, are they going to win the division at plus 500? There's definitely no value there. I'm not touching them there. And I think no to make the playoffs is a good value, actually.
2 years ago, the Commanders, then, of course, the Washington football team, we're going to mess that name up at some point this year. I promise you that.
I've already messed it up.
But they did have a pretty good defense led by Chase Young at defensive end. Last year, that regressed a little bit. So if there is an area for optimism, I think it's on that side of the ball where they're kind of like the Saints were last year, where they're real difficult to score against and they're doing just enough on offense and putting themselves in good field position to where, maybe they sneak out 8 wins. But Spencer, from a fantasy perspective, I don't see a ton there outside of maybe Terry McLaurin.
No, yeah, I don't like him for fantasy because I don't see where Carson Wentz is going to just come in and set the world on fire. This will be his third team in 3 years and arguably the worst team he's been on out of the 3. So, I don't see him doing a whole lot. Gibson's value gets hurt by them drafting Brian Robinson, because now there's going to be a 3-headed committee with Gibson, Robinson, and J.D. McKissick. So it's just not going to be enough carries to one guy to, for any of those 3 to really excel. And then the receiving core, Scary Terry's solid, but he doesn't have quite the upside as like the elite receivers, but he's become a big enough name where he's still getting drafted pretty high. And then Logan Thomas coming off a major injury. So, not a whole lot to like here. Maybe the rookie Jahan Dotson, if, with McLaurin drawing the best coverage, Dotson, had a big playability. He might turn some heads there if he can live up to expectations. But, overall, this team not very productive. Not going to be a whole lot of offense there with Ron Rivera being an old school head coach.
Scott's comment there, that says much more about the history of Commanders quarterbacks than, okay, I get the joke.
And I don't even think that's true. I think Taylor Heineke's a better quarterback. That's just my opinion.
I mean, and maybe it'll end up
Sam Howell.
The joke. Even before they were the Commanders, when they were the Washington football team, when they were the Redskins before that, this is not a team that's had a good quarterback in a long time. I guess Kirk Cousins was decent there for a little while.
Johnny Jurgensen was pretty good.
See, that's what I'm saying. You got to go back to the Jim Derry era. So yeah, I don't see a lot. And we talk about, yes, it's a weak division, so betting under 7.5 might be a little bit of a risk. But we talked about it last week. I mean, we as a group like the New York Giants better than industry standards. And then I think everyone knows the Cowboys will be
Spencer
pretty
doesn't.
good, and the Eagles
Yeah, I
will
was more on the
be
Eagles.
salty. Yeah, the Eagles will be salty though. I mean,
Yeah.
they're going to be better than the Commanders. I think so. Is it an easy division? Yes, but I just don't see a lot of wins for them, even within the division.
I don't think there's any question that this is the worst team in the division. I mean, the Giants had similar issues to the Saints last year, not to the degree the Saints had, but they had injuries galore. Daniel Jones missed a bunch of games. Saquon was still coming back from injury. I think he's going to have a big bounce back year. Their receivers were all over the place. I think this is a year where the Giants definitely at least leapfrog the Commanders. I think they're better than the Eagles, but whether Spencer's right and the Eagles take the next step, I'm not sure. But there's just, I mean, to me, I think Washington is the worst team in the division.
My advice to you, Erica, should my dad burn his Dak Prescott jersey now, wait for another playoff heartbreak. Well, you know it's coming. Why not? Just,
Always a Louisiana native. We got to give him a little bit of a break.
Yeah, I mean, Dak's solid. I mean, he's just, we gave him crap being the Cowboys quarterback. But no, definitely don't burn his jersey. It's not his fault he's playing under Jerry Jones. And Mike McCarthy.
More to the point, Mike McCarthy.
Yeah.
I'm going to be eating crow later because I still think the Dallas Cowboys have a chance. And you can mark this and do Devin's not here, so you'll have a harder time marking it. But mark this down. I think the Dallas Cowboys, I mean, I don't want to rehash what we've already talked about, but I think they have an excellent chance. I think there's values there. And if they can get going and make a run with this schedule that they have, they could be a top seed in the NFC, which gives them a prime run to the Super Bowl. I mean, people don't want to hear that because they hate the Cowboys, but I think the Cowboys are in great shape. Again, go take a look at their schedule. If it's not, it's ranked 29th in the NFL, but it's one of the easiest for sure. And I think Dallas is primed to have a really good season.
And you may be right, Jim. I just don't trust them once it comes to the playoffs. Plus 115, a little bit too low for me to bite on those division odds. We talked about this last week. I like the Giants at 8-1. I think that's worth a flyer. Any other final thoughts as we wrap up the NFC East before we move on? I know, Spencer, you said you take the Eagles at plus 185.
Yeah, if I had to pick one here, I'd probably go with the Eagles. But I was talking with a buddy of mine yesterday, and he brought up a theory that I feel like maybe could have some weight to it. Going back to the days of Brian Dable used to be on the Patriots staff back when they had Jimmy Garoppolo. So he was saying, what if Daniel Jones, it's looking rough for him, and Dable gets aggravated and was like, all right, we're bringing in Jimmy Garoppolo. I think that could actually upgrade the Giants.
They'd have to be in contention to do that. I don't think that's something that would happen. Maybe would happen midseason. It would have to be something kind of weird because I don't think they're ready to give up on Daniel Jones, which is one of the main reasons why I think they brought Dable in. I think they really want Dable to develop Daniel Jones, and I would be surprised if they don't at least give him the full year unless he just completely collapses. And
I could see that happening if Daniel Jones were to get hurt.
Yeah,
maybe if they keep if the 49ers keep Jimmy. And then, the Jones, mid-season, he's either hurt or has 15 picks, then, I think they make the move.
Of course, if he's got 15 picks, they're probably not in contention. So before we move on to our next division, I got a comment from Scott here. I want to put – oh, whoops, missed that one. No, I'm sorry. It's from Ardwan. Any word on Quan coming back? It does not look like the Saints are going to sign Quan Alexander. They're pretty happy with Pete Werner at that spot at linebacker, and Quan's expensive. And look, as much as Quan Alexander has done for LSU and the Saints and this state, and as good as he was, this is a young man's game, and they like what Pete Werner can give you.
I think if they were going to re-sign Quan, they would have done it already. I don't think they would wait to go into camp without re-signing him. And if you talk to Jeff Duncan from the get-go, he was saying from early on he didn't think Quan fit in with the plans of this team. So I think they're moving on.
Yeah, that's sort of the tough part of the business is you got to say goodbye to your favorite player sometimes before maybe you think you're ready to, or before you think they're completely are over the hill. Quan Alexander might catch on somewhere and play pretty well, but he's going to be expensive compared to Pete Werner. and he's got an injury history, and look, New Orleans, I just think they're looking for upgrades in other places. So with that said, let's move on to the AFC West, and that is our division for this week. Once again, what will happen is Jim every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday will release one team and make a pick on their win total, or say no pick on that win total. I'm not sure. And then he'll also have Adam Chernoff of Covers.com, who's a very sharp bettor, gambling expert, especially on the NFL. And he will give his take, whether he agrees or disagrees with Jim, or whether he's staying away. And we're doing that. Each week will be a new division. This week is the AFC West. So I believe tomorrow we have the Broncos up first. Is that right, fellas?
That is correct.
Yeah.
We're starting with Denver tomorrow, going in alphabetical order by city. So it's Denver, Kansas City, Las Vegas, and LA. And it's a fun division. I mean, all four of these teams potentially could have a winning record. And last year they were all pretty good except for Denver. So I think this is a division where you get the extra playoff spot. I think you easily could see I'd be shocked if you don't have two, and easily could see three teams from this division go to the playoffs. I don't want to give any spoiler alerts. You'll have to watch the previews to get my picks, but and to get Adam's picks as well. But there are definitely some values here. There are some, we talk about whether Russell Wilson makes that big of a difference with the Broncos. Is Justin Herbert ready to be a top 3 or 4 quarterback? Maybe he is already. Derek Carr's got a new weapon in Devontae Adams. And, I mean, you talk about Kansas City. Here's one spoiler alert. Their over-under win total is 10.5, and they still have a guy named Patrick Mahomes. I know they lost Tyreek Hill, but they bring in Juju and Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and and they've shored up their running game, I think, with Ronald Jones. So, spoiler alert, I think you can see where I'm going with Kansas City. But it's in a very interesting division. We had a lot of fun with it this week, and each day, starting tomorrow.
So, again, you'll get Jim's win total picks and analysis of the odds in the morning, and then every afternoon, Spencer will have the fantasy preview for the corresponding team. So tomorrow afternoon will be the Broncos, Wednesday afternoon the Chiefs, then the Raiders and Chargers. Spencer, we look at the Chiefs. I mean, I think one thing is you look at this division and it's much more balanced than most, right? Like the underdog here is the Raiders at 7-1, and that's in a division with a team that's a Super Bowl contender. So maybe even several Super Bowl contenders, depending on who you ask. Whereas in the NFC East, which is supposed to be a weak division, you had the Giants at 8-1. The first division we did was the AFC East. You had the Jets at 22-1. So this is supposed to be a much more balanced division. And from a fantasy perspective, every team has something to like here. My question for you, Spencer, is how much do you downgrade Patrick Mahomes, if at all, because he doesn't have Tyreek Hill anymore?
For sure. Yeah, I wouldn't downgrade Patrick Mahomes too much. I am downgrading him a little bit, though, to where I've now got Justin Herbert ranked above him. Because I think with Herbert, he's going to – Jim's giving me the look there.
You okay, Jim?
No.
I mean, I have him second and third. He was really hating on Herbert, man. I think Herbert.
I'm not hating on Herbert, but you're talking about Patrick Mahomes going below Justin Herbert?
I mean, I think Herbert outperformed him last year for fantasy. They were close, but
on my league.
But I don't know, man. Mahomes without Tyreek is definitely going to hurt him to some degree. I know Juju and MVS are there, but neither of those guys are Tyreek Hill as far as that elite field stretching ability, the yak yards. I feel like the numbers dip somewhat, but with that comes an opportunity to get Mahomes at a value. I've been seeing Mahomes drop in single quarterback leagues. He normally was a 3rd round pick. Now you can a lot of times get him in the 5th round. And to me, that's a value. 4th round, probably about where he should go. But if he falls to the 5th, I'm normally not one to take my quarterback early. But if he's there in the 5th, I might just have to pull the trigger.
Yeah, and remember.
One of the problems I will say, Zach, real quick, and we'll get to it when we get to Kansas City, but their schedule the first half of the year and for fantasy-wise and real-life football is brutal. They have a brutal first 9 weeks of the season, and it's not going to help anybody if you have any Chief, if you go take a look at it. So they could regress a little bit as far as fantasy number goes. Now it helps pick up towards the end of the season, but just take a look at the schedule. It's not easy at all.
And what I was going to say is keep in mind the fantasy outlook is not always the same as the real world outlook, right? Like you you could like the Chiefs to win the division and still downgrade Patrick Mahomes below Justin Herbert. Like those are both possible to believe. Now, look, maybe we're looking to your point, like, and we'll talk more about this on Thursday. We'll do a lot of AFC West on Thursday, but could it be like last year where the Chiefs are 4-4 after 8 games, and what's wrong with the Chiefs? They're not any good. I mean, Patrick Mahomes doesn't look the same, and then they get it going and they play the weaker half of their schedule, and by the time January rolls around, they're a Super Bowl threat again.
Certainly, and one of the things I'm gonna say is if you do like the Chiefs, that's one of the few teams. Most bargains you're gonna get now. You're not going to get a lot of bargains later. Now, like the Bengals, you got a huge bargain in October last year. But the Chiefs may be one of those teams where you do wait because you may be able to get them certainly better at plus 1,000 because if they do struggle a little bit, even if they go like 5-3, you got to think those Super Bowl odds might go up to like 1,500-1,600. They start at 4-4, might get them at 2,000, which would be a serious bargain.
Yeah, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. So we will talk more AFC West on Thursday. We'll do the Broncos, Chiefs, and Raiders, the first 3 teams, and then we'll hold off on the Chargers until next Monday, and kind of do like we did with the Commanders today, and wrap up the AFC West, and then move on to the NFC West. And we'll have real live preseason football to talk about next week too. Like I said, the Hall of Fame game coming up in just 10 days, so it is coming. You're watching Bayou Bets on bet.nola.com. And by the way, some exciting news. Thursday's show, which we have called At the Book for the first year of our existence, is going to be rebranded, and it's just Bayou Bets now. We're Bayou Bets on Mondays and Thursdays. Felt like we'd simplify everything, and that's the name of our newsletter too, which you can sign up for at bet.nola.com. And
is it exciting for everybody, or is it just exciting for us? You think people are like talking about it at the dinner table?
No,
hey, they changed their name.
It simplifies things. And I think that's good because people say, well, I'm going to go watch Bayou Bets. And we used to, our Thursday show is actually called, well, we don't have to do that anymore. So,
I'm going to ask my wife tonight at dinner, and I'm going to see if she gets excited about it.
Well, I want you to report back on the next episode of Bayou Bets on Thursday.
I most certainly will.
The first Thursday edition of Bayou Bets. So moving on to a couple of other things here on the Monday edition of Bayou Bets. Yesterday was the NASCAR race at Pocono. And it was a fairly standard race until after it ended. What I mean by that is that it turned into one of the strangest gambling events of the year, or maybe of any year. Denny Hamlin had apparently won the race at Pocono, and then he and Kyle Busch, who finished second, both failed post-race inspection. And so the official results show. You'll see at the bottom of your screen here, Denny Hamlin and Kyle Busch finished last and second to last. And the leader was Chase Elliott. The winner was Chase Elliott with 0 laps led. In fact, the top 3 finishers in the race didn't even lead a lap of the race. So that's just bizarre from a real world perspective. But from a gambling perspective, it was chaos, Spencer.
Yeah, it definitely was. And I was reading more about it, like how other books handled it. I think it was either DraftKings or FanDuel. They just paid out Denny Hamlin's people, and then that was it. They didn't. That's just they paid it out as soon as it ended. Where Caesars waited until the official results, and so ended up paying out the Elliott people, which he ended up with credited with the win and the points. It's crazy though, because this hadn't happened since 1960, where a driver was literally stripped of a win. I mean, they've had post-race penalties before where drivers would lose points, but they usually still, in the history book, still get the win. But they literally stripped the win, and not only the first place, the second place from Kyle Busch. A similar. Made sense because they're, similar cars, same manufacturer, same team, but just a shocking turn of events there because, it's been, I don't know, 50 years since this has happened.
Yeah, it's crazy. And look, from a sports betting perspective, what it goes to show you is know your house rules. Know the rules of the book that you're betting in. At Caesars, they wait until after inspection for any results. And so if you bet on Hamlin, you were out of luck. If you bet on Chase Elliott, as I believe you did in your Fast Five, Spencer, all of a sudden you had an unexpected payday. There are other books where it's the opposite, where they only give the victory to the actual winner on the track, and any inspections do not factor into it. And so Hamlin was paid out and not Elliott. And that stuff's all published on these sports books, so you can look it up. It's the same thing, Jim, in golf with dead heat reductions. You don't some books do it, most books do it now, but some don't. If you have a top 40 and you have a guy who ties for 38 with 10 other guys, it catches your top 40. Other books will reduce that based on how many guys, you've got a fraction of it because there were 10 guys who all had to squeeze into the top 40. So, know your house rules.
Sometimes ties are losses too. You have to really pay attention to that and look ahead and know what you're betting before you bet it. Because, look, I mean, we're all guilty of not understanding the rules, and then we think we ought to get paid on something, we don't get paid, and then you're wondering why, and you're screaming and blah blah blah, and then you're saying the books are crooks and all this stuff. But you got to know the rules before you bet it.
Yeah, and I will say in this sort of new era of sports betting in the U.S., there are still some books who will go eat, like I think it was FanDuel today said, hey, look, it's bad beat refund. We're gonna pay out both winners. We're gonna pay out Hamlin and we're gonna pay out Elliott, and they paid out everybody.
Good PR.
That's not gonna last. I'm telling you right now. As the market becomes more mature, the bettors have to become more mature and realize that, like, look, you made your pick. Know the house rules. This is how the cookie crumbled.
We're already seeing books back off on being nice, I guess is the way to say it. I'm not going to mention the name of the book because it wouldn't be fair to them, I guess, to say it out loud. But I had an instance last week where I had opted into a golf promo, and in the very, very small print way down, I mean, you'd have to read every word of this thing. It was only for the first bet of the promo. So the promo was if a golfer finished in the top 5 but didn't win, you would get a free bet equivalent of how much you bet, up to $25. Well, I had Tommy Fleetwood. He finished in the top 5, and I didn't get it. And go through, and again, I'm talking about way down at the bottom of all these rules is it's only applies to the first guy, and you wouldn't have known it unless you read every word of it. So, I mean, the grand scheme of things, they're right and I'm wrong, but they ticked me off enough to take my money out of there and put it in Caesars. So,
and I mean, look, I think the point is you either need to read the fine print, every word of it, or you need to accept that sometimes this is not,
right.
It's just not going to go your way. And that's like with any other business. But some of these things get complicated. Spencer, you watch a lot of NASCAR. This is unprecedented. I mean, I don't think we expect it to happen a lot, but it is a good lesson.
Yeah, for sure. And they're getting more strict about this kind of stuff because of the new next gen car, because they made it a point to where teams, like every team's like base of the car is like the same. Like they want it to be to where the teams with money can't get a huge advantage over the smaller teams. And so while this
it's the opposite of Formula One is what you're saying.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, they want it to be where Formula One tends to be, the Ferraris, Mercedes, or NASCAR. They want it to be as like competitive as possible, so to where even the smaller teams can have a chance to win. Which it's been that so far. They've had 14 different winners on the season, and so it's definitely they've accomplished that, and they haven't had too many penalties. This is the biggest one so far. They had another big one a few weeks back in which a driver, Brad Keselowski, lost like 100 points. I don't think he finished too high in that race, so I don't think they like stripped his result, but they did take a lot of points from him, so it definitely hurt his playoff chances. So they're not joking about this stuff. They're definitely cracking down on it, and this was a huge wake-up call, I'd say, for all the teams and drivers and bettors, for those who like to bet a wager on the NASCAR. Definitely don't celebrate till inspections are through.
They want it to be more competitive, unlike NCAA football.
Yeah. yeah, because there's no NIL. They need to get some NIL restrictions, or else that's going to get really out.
We are on a roll today, because that is another professional segue right there. Want to talk a little college football to end the show, because college football season, you talk about NFL being around the corner. Well, college football season actually starts with some games 2 weeks before that. August 27th, there are some games. And so today we take a little look at the Heisman race. And it's interesting. Bryce Young won it last year. He is the second choice behind C.J. Stroud. And I think part of that is just voter fatigue. They don't like betting the same guy or voting in the same guy 2 years in a row. And part of that may be that he splits votes with the fourth name you see there, Will Anderson, who's getting a lot of steam. He's had a couple of big bets put on him. Starting to become a real possibility, maybe, that you have a defensive player in the Heisman mix. I know a lot of people say I'll believe it when I see it. But just anecdotally, boy, you hear a lot more buzz about Will Anderson than you hear about most defensive players preseason.
Yeah, and Bryce Young, I mean, to me, just knowing voters, I mean, I know a lot of Heisman voters, you're going to have to – he would have to, like, be the clear and obvious choice to win. So I'm not sure that there's value there right now. So, but I wish I could channel my inner Devin Jackson and find, is there anybody from Western Kentucky on this list? Or Central Michigan somewhere? And all kidding aside, but I mean, if you're looking for a long shot, I mean, I was watching some highlights from Tyler Van Dyke today. I don't know why I was, but I was. And I think the ACC is going to be interesting this year. And I think that he could, if there's a surprise team in that conference, it could be Miami. And I think at 35-1, I kind of like his odds right there. I certainly think he has a chance to be one of the guys going to New York later on.
Yeah, and I'll point out Caleb Williams. I mean, I know. Listen, he only played 10 games last year. Maybe it wasn't even that. It was 8 or 9 games, and was in the Heisman conversation at Oklahoma. Now that he and his coach have both moved on to LA, but is there any reason that Caleb Williams couldn't do the same thing out against Pac-12 schedule? It feels like he could put up some big numbers in a big media market and maybe get some steam for this award. I do think Stroud is a worthy favorite. The way Ohio State is, the way their offense has been, it's C.J. Stroud's award to lose, at least from a preseason perspective. And then the other thing I'll say, guys, is that down below you see some interesting odds from an LSU perspective. Miles Brennan, 50-1. Jaden Daniels, 80-1. Of course, they're going to have to win the job before they can make a Heisman run. Max Johnson, who transferred to Texas A&M, is 75-1. The one I kind of like is a flyer on Kayshon Boutte at 100-1. If he has a Jamar Chase type final season at LSU, again, it's very difficult for a wide receiver to win the Heisman, but it did happen a couple of years ago. So I don't hate that for a couple dollars at 100-1.
Well, the one thing I'll say about C.J. Stroud is I think the Big Ten is going to be down this year. I don't think. I mean, the Big Ten to me is never great. I know they get overhyped and everything, but I think Ohio State is clearly the best team in the Big Ten, and I think he's going to have some huge games. So there's a reason why he's the favorite. He should be the favorite. As far as some of the other guys you talked about, I mean, sure, if you want to lay a buck down on Kayshon Boutte, you win $100 if you win. Why not?
Yeah, I think the Ohio State's big dog receivers could be a value too. Jackson Smith and Jigba, because as we saw, Devontae Smith won it a couple years ago, and I mean Mac Jones had a really nice year. He could have given it to him, but Smith was so dominant that they went with him. I'm not saying that Smith and Jigba is going to do it over C.J. Stroud, but I think it's worth a flyer. Kind of like with Boutte.
Going to look up Smith and Jigba's odds here because I did see him on the list. He is 40-1, so he's just kind of below this first list of guys. So 40-1 on Jackson Smith and Jigba. Nick, you were looking for Devin's Maxion picks. How about a long shot Heisman pick from Spencer the Guru instead? Maybe Devin will set up a Patreon or something for I would subscribe for some Mac and Mountain West picks and stuff.
Yeah, maybe some Sun Belt picks.
Yeah, 3 for 3 in transitions. Here we go. Sunbelt Media Day is Wednesday down in New Orleans at the Sheraton, I think, in New Orleans. So here's your Sunbelt Conference odds. They did come out with the preseason media poll today. A little bit interesting. One thing you like from the Ragin' Cajuns perspective, and yes, Billy Napier is gone, and Michael DeSormo is a first-year head coach. He does have a lot of continuity. The other thing you like is they are in by far the weaker division of the Sunbelt. App State, Marshall, Coastal Carolina, Georgia State, 4 of those next 5 are all in the East. The next team in the West on this list is Troy, followed by Arkansas State, and then you have Southern Miss. But Marshall is the best team coming into this league from Conference USA, and they got put in the East, which already had App State and Coastal Carolina. So to me, it sets up really well for UL. at plus 250, maybe that's not a rich enough price for me to take a flyer, Spencer.
Yeah, I think they're definitely getting they're the favorite for being in that weaker division. It's just I just with Coach Dez, I think there's going to be a bit of a transition, and they lost a lot of talent with guys transferring, going to Florida and such, following Coach Napier. So I don't know. I mean, plus 250, there could be some value there. But as a UL alum, I probably wouldn't touch it. I'm kind of nervous about the Raging Cajuns this year. I think they'll probably still win the Sun Belt West, but I don't know. I just feel like with the first year without Coach Napier could have some growing pains. But especially with a new quarterback too, Levi Lewis, the super seniors finally ran out of eligibility.
What did he play, like 10 years?
Close to it. I think
okay.
6. So and he was the starter for like 4 of those years. So losing Levi is,
Chandler Fields, baby. Chandler Fields.
Right, yeah, from Rummel. Yeah, he's the favorite to start right now. So hopefully Chandler can do his thing. And the receiving core should be a little better. I know they lost Kyron Lacey too to the portal, but the receiving core was a weak spot last year. Hoping that'll be a little better. It's just the running game might not be quite as good with losing Imani Bailey and Montrell Johnson.
Levi Lewis, by the way, graduated from Scotlandville in Baton Rouge. Was it Scotlandville?
Yeah, I believe.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, and that was in 2017. So
just goes.
He has been around a while.
I covered Chandler Fields when he was a freshman at Holy Cross. So goes to show Chandler Fields had quite the right.
Patrick, who does not pretend to be a small school, at least not a MAC expert like Devin does, but he has covered football in this area of the country for a long time, including Southern Miss and Conference USA. He says Old Dominion's worth a look. They're at 60-1 on this list. Didn't have room for him. But I will say it's a little bit interesting to look. And Jim, I want you to chime in on what this could mean or what it means to you as a bettor. The preseason coaches poll came out today. And good example here, Marshall was picked 4th in its own division. They're picked 4th in the East. They've got the 3rd best odds in the entire conference. So obviously in a gambling world, their price is a lot shorter than you'd expect it to be from the poll. And then the flip side of that is South Alabama was picked right behind the Raging Cajuns in the Western Division, and they're way down at 22-1 to win the league.
I have never put anything into coaches' polls because they often, well, first of all, some coaches' polls, they can't vote on themselves. Some of them they can, but they always downplay themselves anyway. They poor mouth themselves. They say teams that they think might not be as good as others are going to be better. They never put their real rankings in there, or very rarely. I can tell you this from going back to way back when. They don't tell you what they really think. So I don't put anything in coaches' polls. I never have. And ask a coach what he thinks about his team. And 8 times out of 10, they're going to tell you, oh, I don't know, we're going to struggle this year. It's going to be tough, blah, 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 blah. Get out of here.
Yeah, they do the same thing in high school.
Absolutely.
Spurrier would tell you like it is, though.
Some of them will, but you know who they are. And then, and then the other, you get either a poor mouth, we're going to be terrible, I don't know how good we are, or average at best, we'll be lucky to win 7 games, or you'll get the guy who thinks they're going 12-0 and we're the best team. There's no middle ground. There's nobody that's going to tell you exactly how they're going to be. Sometimes when you get them with the tape recorder not on, it's just you, mano a mano, they'll tell you what they think. But even then, it's hard to get.
I will say this. Marshall being a newcomer to the league and kind of being voted lower down in that division, but seeing their odds higher kind of makes me like Marshall a little bit. To come out of the East plus 375, just because it feels like not everyone is aware of what a good program that is in the Sun Belt, maybe. And obviously the people who know the sports books, the odds makers have set their price low. So maybe they know something that everyone else doesn't.
Yeah, this is never, I'll be straight up honest. This is not my thing. I don't bet futures on smaller schools, really. I don't know enough about the Sun Belt. I haven't had enough time to look through it. I know a lot of these players because I've covered them in high school. Obviously the players that I covered didn't go to Appalachian State or Coastal Carolina or anything, but I know a lot of the UL players, and I know that the talent they have is very good. And so it's just not something that I spend a lot of time on and haven't had time to. But as we get into the season, I got a feeling we'll all be spending more time on it because our minor football expert is gone. So we're gonna have to pick up the slack somewhere.
Well, in addition to the NFL previews that we're putting out every Tuesday through Friday, I'm doing a different conference preview every week for college football. So I'm trying to fill the void. I don't know if I'm going to pick them as well as Devin did, but I've gotten through the MAC and the Mountain West, and this week is the Sun Belt. So coming out Wednesday morning, a full preview of the Sun Belt with some of my value picks, and then we'll do the American Athletic Association with Tulane next week, and then getting into the Power 5 conferences after that, which there may not be 5 power conferences for much longer.
I'm ready to get my big bucks refreshed.
Yeah, I guess we got to let you start back at where we were.
I got to start back from the beginning.
I mean, that's not how real life works. Maybe we should start you at
what
were you at $12 or something?
I think it was like $3.50.
I'm down to get in on that this year, the big bucks.
That's right. Spencer will join Big Bucks, and we'll have more for you. We're your one-stop shop. Please check it out. Every day we've got new football preview stuff. We've got other stuff. Spencer's got a look at fantasy baseball for the rest of the season, try to help you win your league in those pennant races. We talked about the strange NASCAR situation, things like that as they come up will also be on the site. And I'm even going to do a little soccer preview next week. English Premier League coming back
only a few more weeks of golf. Golf's about to wrap up.
Golf. We'll have some UFC, as UFC's got a couple of big events coming up. So we are your one-stop shop for sports betting. Check us out at bet.NOLA.com. And also check out Caesars Sportsbook, NOLA.com/Caesars. New users get a $1,500 risk-free bet. And we encourage you to do that with our promo code, NOLA.com/Caesars. I'm not sure what Nick means. I'm sure he's trying to insult you, though.
No. He wants to get on the big bucks too, but what he doesn't know yet, and I haven't told him. What I haven't told him, so I can break the news to him here. That's how we're going to do our picks this year. We're going to have our own little big bucks thing. So instead of doing our top 5 picks on Datitude, we're going to start off with X amount of money, and we'll see how long before he burns through it.
Are you saying Uncle Big Nick might take a few risks?
Uncle Big Nick is a really good golf bettor. Football, not so much.
Okay.
Right. But we're going to bring him on anyway because he's fun.
Maybe we'll get some picks in there just to see how he does against us. I also, it would be fun. We'll talk about this offline, but we need to bring random people from our lives in to make picks against us on various weeks to see if Jim's wife can beat him picking the NFL one week.
My wife, I can bring the 6-year-old in. She'll probably beat me.
Hell yeah. Let's do it. So we're going to keep rolling. We do have the return of the Fantasy Roundup show tomorrow as well at 3:30 p.m. on these same social media channels. Spencer and I will break down some fantasy football, a short show kind of setting up for your drafts. I know those are starting to roll in and all of that, and we'll talk that. And then we'll be back 4 o'clock on Thursday for Bayou Bets. And Jim, you have Datitude on Friday.
Datitude on Friday. I don't know who my guest is yet, but we had a great season premiere with Larry Holder and Adam Chernoff. I encourage everyone to go find it if they haven't listened to it yet. You can find it wherever you find your podcast, Apple, Google, Spotify, all those good places, and on bet.nola.com. So we had a great first episode of the season, and we're looking forward to getting rolling here. It won't be long before we're doing 3 episodes a week again.
So there you have it. Lots of places to find us, lots of places to read us. Thank you for checking us out and spending some time with us on this Monday. For our producer, Patrick McGee, and for Spencer the Guru and Jim Derry, I'm Zach Ewing. Have a good day, everybody.